Well, a lot of great minds have tried to solve the riddle of downtown Jacksonville. Now it's the subject of a new podcast. Here to tell us about it is Marty Busekrus, creator and host of the Jacksonville Blueprint Podcast. Welcome, Marty.
Hey, how are you?
Great. It's very nice to have you here.
It's interesting being on the other side of the microphone. Usually I'm the one asking the
Yeah,
questions.
that's
So,
right. Get ready.
yeah.
So there's lots of podcasts out there. As far as I know, this is the only one that's really narrowly focused on downtown growth and development. Why did you see a need for a podcast?
Well, I think that there's so much going on, right? You read the newspapers. There's a lot going on in downtown Jacksonville. And what I wanted to try to do is give all of the participants, not just the developers, but everybody who's part of the community. I wanted to give them an opportunity to express what they want. What everybody, if you ask 100 different people what their vision of downtown is, you're going to get 100 different answers. So let's ask 100 different people and let's all collectively try to talk about downtown and what we like, what we don't like. Um, Sometimes most importantly, what we don't like. I've
Is
heard
that what the conversation tends to circle around?
sometimes, right? I've heard several times, well, we don't want to be like Miami, you know? So it's what do we want out of a downtown? And then the harder question, how do we get there?
Right. So you've talked to several people that are fairly prominent in the community so far. Alex Safakis is a local developer from JWB. You've talked to Travis Williams, who works for Lyft Jacks
Yep.
in the Out East area.
Yep.
Are there any themes emerging, even as you talk to people who are very different kinds of stakeholders?
Yeah. Well, yes. The most interesting thing I think is is everybody says that you have to get a sense of the community. If you are a developer and you just come in and you're like, I want to build this, and you don't get input from the community, your project isn't going to go anywhere.
Hmm.
And I think that that's been one of the consistent themes. We talk a lot about what other successful cities have done. A lot of people point to Tampa. It used to be, I guess, our sister city. We had Brian Payton on from Arco who was talking about Birmingham, Alabama, and their transformation. And one of the things was uh, community buy-in, and then also the government's role in all of that.
It's interesting. I mean, the people that you've talked to, there are often these comparative cities. Tampa used to be much more, of a similar type situation. St. Petersburg,
Uh,
both of which have really taken off. And now I find, in your podcast, people are doing more comparisons to, and nothing against Birmingham, Chattanooga, Knoxville, but it does seem to me that those cities are, often smaller southern cities. They're not necessarily traditionally, in terms of like the size of the city, um, as aspirational as some of the other cities that we used to look to. And do you feel like Jacksonville has fallen behind as these other southern cities have surged ahead?
Not necessarily. I've seen a lot worse. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I love St. Louis. Go Cardinals, go Blues. Like I love it. But their downtown has drastically fallen behind. So I don't think that Jacksonville is as bad as some people say that it is. I know that the jokes with the city of renderings and all that, but I think that's good because that means that you've got people who are willing to spend money at least on a drawing. You go to some other cities, they're not even spending money on drawings. So I don't think that we're in a bad position at all.
How are you selecting the folks that you want to talk to? What's your criteria?
Listen, we're new in the podcast space, so I'm willing to talk to everybody because again, it's about the community. If 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 you're a worker in downtown, an office worker, let's have a conversation. If you have a good idea of what you want downtown to look like, let's talk. Everybody in the community needs to participate, not just the developers with the capital.
Yeah. It's interesting in your the promo for your podcast, you talk about people who complain that deals don't pencil in this town.
Yeah.
Like I literally didn't even know what that meant. I had to Google the phrase. But so tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
it. I do know, no, but for
Yeah.
people who don't, and explain
Yeah.
how does that apply to Jacksonville?
Yeah. So the podcast is about downtown, but then in order to get there, in order to get to a successful downtown, the area itself has to, the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area, has to be elevated as well. So what I mean by deals don't pencil, or it's very hard to pencil deals here, the rents that we get here in Jacksonville are very, very tough for an investor or a developer to make money given the high cost to construct, buildings. It's just you're not going to make any money. So how do like for example, office rents in downtown, Jacksonville, $25 a square foot. Miami for new buildings, $150 to $200 a square foot. So 3 times the amount of rent for office. You can go build a speculative office building in Miami at $800 a foot is what it costs to build, probably $1,000 a foot. And if you're getting $150 in rent, it pencils. Here,
Meaning it pays for the project. It's worth the
the
investment.
correct, the investors who are investing in that are going to get their money back. They're going to get a return on that investment. Here, it's very, very, very hard. It might cost $600 or $700 a square foot to build an office building, but if you're only getting $25 a year in rent, it's just very, very, very hard, to pencil. So, how do we, as a community, how do we get rents up? How do we get rents in office and retail and residential from their current levels, which are low? How do we get them to double or triple? I know if you're an office or if you're a tenant listening to me, you're probably shaking your head like, "Hey, keep my rent low,"
Well, and we even have a lot of vacancy downtown in our, at least in our, um, you know, office space, right? On 20%
Yeah,
vacancy right now. That's a
y-
lot.
it is, and I'm not going to shy away from that. It is, but we're not doing that much worse than anybody else. If you look at Miami, West Palm Beach, they are an anomaly in the country. Look at San Francisco, 30%,
Mm.
vacant in their downtown. New York City is at like 18 to 20, I think, right now. So we're not worse than anybody else. That's just the office market right now.
Do you have your own sense of what the answer to the riddle of downtown development is?
Uh, boy, if I did, wouldn't that be great? I think that you have to. There's a couple of things that I think are very, very important, and we're on the right path. University of Florida is a big one. If we can get higher paying jobs through higher paying graduate degree programs, that's fantastic. That's what we need.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. That's an absolute big one. If we can attract companies that have higher paying jobs, huge.
It's something that we'll watch. Looking forward to more episodes of the podcast. Marty Busekrus, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
You can come on the next episode. How about that?
Right. It's an invite.